Joe Biden has done a terrible job, and people know that he's done a terrible job. In fact, even Michael Che, who's a comedian on Saturday Night Live, obviously not on the right, even Michael Che was ripping on Joe Biden's lack of appeal to black Americans. And the crowd was like, are you allowed to say this? The answer is yes, they are allowed to say this. Joe Biden is not going to get high black turnout. He's just not going to do it.
President Biden said Friday that he would visit the site of the Baltimore bridge collapse because, like that bridge, Biden is no longer connecting with black communities. You got to read the polls.
Wow.
Yeah, everybody's surprised you're not allowed to say that. Wow, that's very upsetting. You're mentioning all of that. And then, by the way, SNL then juxtaposed that with a video that Donald Trump put out on Truth Social that showed a truck, and on the back of the truck was painted Joe Biden in the back of the truck, like tied up like he'd been kidnapped or something. Probably because Trump thought it was funny. And the entire media was like, that's terrible. How could he do that? He's so immature and terrible. Okay, he can be all of those things, and still, if faced with the prospect of voting for the guy who's immature on Truth Social, but also had a solid economy that was not being handed over to all of the foreign powers in the world, they might take the guy who's immature but was good at the president thing, as opposed to the guy who is beyond his sell-by date and also very, very bad at the president thing. That is the choice that the Biden administration is making clear to the American public right now, and it's not going amazingly well for them. $20, it barely gets you anything these days. You can't even fill your gas tank for $20. But you know what $20 will get you? Well, from the cell phone company I use, Pure Talk, you can get unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $20 a month. Pure Talk gives you the same quality of service as your current cell phone provider, but for half the cost. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year, all with no contracts and no activation fees. You can switch to Pure Talk and keep the phone and phone number you currently use, or you can take advantage of their great deals on the latest iPhones and Androids. Making the switch is incredibly easy. Their U.S. customer service team can help you join Pure Talk in as little as 10 minutes. Choose to spend your hard-earned money with a wireless company that shares your values, supports our military and veterans, creates American jobs, and refuses to advertise on, the fake news networks. Stop spending a ridiculous amount of money on your phone plan. Go to puretalk.com/Shapiro. Right now, my listeners can get an additional 50% off their very first month of coverage. That's puretalk.com/Shapiro. Again, puretalk.com/Shapiro. I've been using them for years at this point. You should do the same at puretalk.com/Shapiro. The Biden administration, as Michael Che suggested, not connecting particularly well with the black community, but also not doing an amazing job on this whole Baltimore bridge collapse routine. Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, straight from the cover of Mad Magazine circa 1997. Pete Buttigieg, it turns out, does not instill trust in the American public. Every time he does an interview, I think you feel less secure getting in a plane. Here he was over the weekend suggesting, guys, it's perfectly safe to fly despite the doors that are coming off the Boeings.
What would you say to those who are scared to fly right now?
Well, I would say that every time I step onto an airliner, whether I'm going to look at a bridge or whether I'm flying somewhere with my husband and kids, like we will be later this week, I know that I'm participating in the safest form of travel in America, and that what makes it the safest form of travel in America is all of the work and all of the people who stand behind that, including the men and women of our FAA. We're talking about an extraordinary safety record. And just think about this mode of travel. It involves being propelled by flammable liquids in a metal tube through the sky at nearly the speed of sound, and again, is the safest way to travel.
My favorite thing is when he starts describing how machines work. I love it. It's great. Like Pete Buttigieg talking about, you should train sometimes derail, but can you think of a machine moving along the ground at a fairly high rate of speed across metal tracks where the wheels turn, and the turning of the wheels is generated by power that comes originally from coal, but then later was moved to other fuel sources? Amazing. Just amazing. I love trains. This guy, this is the one who you guys were thinking was like a presidential candidate? Okay, then. By the way, it's not just him. He did say over the weekend that he has learned a lot from Joe Biden. Like, it's very hard to be president. Yeah, well, Joe Biden makes it look pretty hard. That's true.
I know when a lot of people see you on television these days, they may still think to themselves, oh, I wonder if he still wants the big job one day. Now that you've been closer to it, working alongside a president, is it still something you aspire to?
Well, I certainly have a new perspective on just how demanding that job is. Watching President Biden deal with so many concerns, challenges, and opportunities for this country. And I'm proud to be a small part of the big team that helps him get that done. I sincerely don't know whether I will run for elected office of any kind again. What I do know is that I've been asked to take on a big job. I'm honored and humbled to do it. It's hard, it's rewarding, and it's taken about 110% of what I have to give right now.
Wow. It's taking 110% of what he has to give. He doesn't have to give all that much because, paternity leave and all of that. Meanwhile, I do love that, again, the backups to Joe Biden are Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris. According to Reuters, hosting rapper Fat Joe at the White House to talk about reforming marijuana laws, visiting an abortion clinic, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza at the historic Selma Bridge in Alabama, walking the blood-stained crime scene of the Parkland, Florida school shooting. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has stepped out of the shadow of President Joe Biden in recent weeks as part of a high-profile effort to persuade the fractious coalition of voters who sent them to the White House to give them a second term. I can't think of anything much more off-putting than that list of little performances that Kamala Harris is doing. Wow. I mean, now I definitely want to vote for the ticket that hosted Fat Joe at the White House to talk about pot and visited an actual abortion clinic and went to the Selma Bridge to jabber about why Hamas needs to be preserved and to go to Parkland, Florida. I mean, wow. That is the kind of governance that I think America could use. According to USA Today, Harris's evolving role comes as progressive Democrats target Biden over his pro-Israel stance. Polls show him in a tight race against Republican rival Donald Trump. As left-leaning voters question Biden's age and leadership, a problem Trump doesn't face with his core voters, the 59-year-old Harris is taking on a more heated topic, more often and more directly than Biden. She's moved into the starring role. Another time for another look at Kamala. I love that they relaunch Kamala Harris every 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes they relaunch Kamala Harris. It's like a time-condensed Batman relaunch. Like there's a relaunch of the Batman series every 10 years or so. For Kamala Harris, like every 15 minutes. It's like another look at Kamala. Oh my God, she's terrible. Can we please hide her in a closet somewhere? Well, maybe it's time for another look at Kamala. Oh no, she's out again? Put her back. We can't have her out there. She's terrible. Maybe it's time to look at Kamala for like the 82nd time. There was this joke during the Trump administration. This is the day Donald Trump finally becomes president, whenever he would act presidential. And then 5 minutes later, you'd have like a sign in the corner that said, days since acting unpresidential, set it back to 0. That's Kamala Harris, except it's days since being unbelievably annoying and terrible in every possible way. And she gets to like day 1, and then they set it back to 0. If your great hopes, Democrats, are that people are going to not be super enthused about Joe Biden, but they will love the prospect of Kamala Harris taking over when he dies, good luck to you. Good luck to you. Again, the single best insurance Joe Biden has that he won't be ousted as the nominee is that he picked somebody even less popular in Kamala Harris.
Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.